So we've been talking about the different parts of the brain, and now we're going to transition and go a little bit different route. And what we're going to talk about for this slide specifically, we're going to go over the hierarchy of systems in the body, and we're going to be starting with the most basic unit and then working our way up to a complex system. Now, from a biological perspective here in the body, the smallest unit is an atom, and you will need to know the order of everything that we're talking about for the exam. So, the smallest unit in biology is an atom, and atoms together can form a molecule. Molecules can then form a cell. And if you look at the picture that we have here on the side, you see how everything flows in one direction where we're headed. So then a cell, several cells can form tissue, and then after the tissue, then we can get an organ, and then after that we can get an organ system, and then finally at the end we have an organism. So I wanted to show you the hierarchy here of the biological hierarchy, and we're going to be focused on one of these here on this list. And what we're going to be focusing on for the next couple of slides is a cell, specific type of cell. What is a cell? A cell is the smallest unit of life. It is the building blocks of life. Now, there are different types of cell in the body. There are stem cells, there are bone cells, blood cells, muscle cells, fat cells, skin cells, but what we're going to be focusing on are nerve cells. And specifically, nerve cells are what we call neurons. And we're going to be talking about neurons. But before we do, I wanted to show you this picture. Now, here's a picture of a neuron. But above the picture of the neuron, I have a tank that the Army would use. Now, I compare a neuron in some ways to a tank. Now, a tank does have two antennas to receive information. The information is then sent into the inside, the body of the tank, where the soldiers are. The soldiers receive that information and then they fire, according to the information that they have received, right? Well, a neuron, in several ways, is similar to a tank. It does have something similar to an antenna to receive information. And after it receives that information, it goes into the body, and then it fires off information. So let's go ahead and talk about the parts of a neuron. Neural communication. So let's first of all define a neuron. A neuron is a nerve cell, that is true, and it's the building blocks of the nervous system. The neuron. And we're going to be talking about the different parts of a neuron. If you're walking down the street, and if you're barefooted, or let's say you're walking on the beach and you're barefoot and you see a piece of broken glass, you're going to need to fire information. Whoa, don't step down. There's a piece of broken glass. Don't complete the step. You're going to hurt yourself. Now, in the tank, I had said that the tank has an antenna. For the neuron, they're called dendrites. These are the fibers that receive messages from other cells. So, much like a tank would receive information from an antenna, the dendrites are the fibers that receive messages from other cells. And when you see that piece of broken glass in the sand, the dendrites are going to receive information from a previous neuron, and this is happening instantaneous, by the way. This is happening at faster than light, making sure that you're careful. The cell body. The cell's life support center. Much like the tank has a body where the soldiers are in the inside. A neuron has a cell body. The life support center is right in the middle. Then we have an axon. Now in the tank, that would be like the cannon. The axon passes messages away from the cell body to other neurons or muscles or glands. So it's firing, it's sending messages away. Now, here over the axon, you see there are these kind of yellow parts. Now, this is what we would call a myelin sheath. Now, it covers the axons of some neurons, and it helps speed the neural impulses. Now, one neuron to another neuron to another neuron is sending information at lightning speed. And if you see a broken glass, the neurons start firing information, making sure that you do not finish your step and that you move so that you don't step on the broken glass, or you just stop walking. So the myelin sheath helps in that process. Then we have the terminal branches. You could say like this is at the very end of the barrel of a tank. Terminal branches of axons form connections with other cells and they send that information out. Now, that little spark, when you see a piece of broken glass, then there is something called action potential. It is that brief electrical charge that travels down the axon and then it sends it down and from one neuron to another neuron to another neuron to making sure that your body's doing what needs to be done. The action potential, it's an electrical charge that travels down an axon. So there we have the neurons, the neural communication, and here we have a summary. Now the summary, here we have neurons and the neural communication, the structure of a neuron. To sum up, there are the dendrites receiving information, the cell body, the cell's life support center, and then it sends information through the axon. And don't forget there is a myelin sheath. When you see a piece of broken glass, there's something called an action potential, right? Sending that information down all the way to the terminal branches so that it gets sent to another or different dendrites. So make sure you know all the parts of a neuron. There are lots of different parts, so be familiar with them because you will need to know them.